Amidst the high speed, high stakes, occasionally corrupt, and constantly enthralling world of corporate drama, there lies a very exciting, commonly misunderstood, and always juicy move known as a takeover. And even juicier than that, a hostile takeover. Right now, there just so happens to be a trendy tale of hostile takeover action happening before our very eyes, between a Mr. Elon Musk and Twitter the Biz. Today, we're delving into the world that brought us to this moment in time. The world of hostile takeovers. This is the story of the largest and most disastrous hostile takeover of all time. This is the story of AOL Time Warner. First things first up in here, what in the heck is this hostile takeover nonsense? Why would such a thing be possible? In the simplest of simple terms, simply put, a hostile takeover is a corporate acquisition that occurs against the wishes of the acquiree company. It's a takeover, but hostile, instead of, not hostile. Look at it in two parts. A takeover is just the old act of one company making a big fat bid to buy a majority of the shares of another company, therefore acquiring them. Takeover/acquisition equals bigger company buying smaller company. This takeover situation can be hostile or it can be friendly. And you know the difference between hostility and friendliness, I would assume. These hostile takeovers occur because the target company and their board of directors do not agree with the acquiring company and their board of directors. They don't necessarily want to be bought out. Yet, that doesn't have to stop the acquiring company. There's a couple of methods to the madness that can make up the process of a big ol' hostile takeover. You got the tender offer method, the proxy fight method, and the method of negotiation leading to a public declaration of a merger of equals, yet broken down into a clear majority ownership going to the acquiring company. Well, the world ain't so black and white, folks. That's why this story is a juicy one. The tale we have before us is quite the exciting one for a great many reasons. One of the major ones being that this big old business moment in history is considered a hostile takeover, depending on who you ask. Perspectives play a part in the record of history. We'll get to the specifics on what the heck I mean by all this in due time. For now, folks, it's time we got to the story here. The roller coaster tale that went on to be called the worst merger in business history. To start things out, please, join me and immerse yourself. Jump back in time to the late 90s. It's a tech party, baby. Boom, boom, bam. This is that beautiful period we know and love, referred to notoriously as the dot-com bubble. The world of tech innovation was everything. The talk of the town, the talk of Wall Street, the talk to the dinner table, because the world as we knew it was rapidly changing around us. And do you know who the leader of this internet-forward movement was? The technology ruler of all rulers? Was it Google? Microsoft? Apple, perhaps? Well, actually, it was AOL. America Online, aka AOL, was the lion amidst the animal kingdom. This was the company. Undeniable, unstoppable, rapidly growing. At a peak, AOL had 35 million customers accessing the internet with the help of their business. The mountain grew higher and higher and higher and higher, so much so that you want to know the valuation they reached by 1999? $222 billion, folks. This was a behemoth. For context, that's bigger than modern day Netflix, American Express, McDonald's, Comcast, and Disney. I mean, damn. And then, on the flip side of all this, I'd like us to all take a quick look at what you might call the opposite of this business. Please welcome Time Warner. Opposite in the fact that Time Warner is and was a legacy player. An established household name, an old school conglomerate, legendary business in the big leagues of the action. Time Warner, in the quickest and slickest, sum up with Chris, was a multinational, oh-so-massive entertainment conglomerate that merged Time Incorporated with Warner Communications. And Warner Communications was just but a parent company restructuring move to house the real deal legacy player, Warner Brothers Entertainment Incorporated, which dates back 99 years of American business, as does Time Incorporated. Both having been founded in the early 1920s, Warner Bros. On April 4th, 1923, and Time on November 28th, 1922. This, as you can see, is a pretty drastic difference in terms of established corporate presence when you compare to the likes of AOL, which, at the point in the 90s that we're immersing ourselves in, was roughly 10 years old as a America Online. A mere baby, you might say. Well, this baby got going quick. This cake got baked in a high-speed convection oven, I say. And I truly have no idea if that metaphor is even close to working. I'm not a big bakeman, actually, if you can imagine. Anyway, in January of 2000, all the pieces of the puzzle lined up. The storm clouds of chaos began to form right there, at the peak of the tech bubble. It's about time you met our two lead characters in this tale. First, Mr. Steve Case, CEO of AOL betwixt the years 1991 and 2001. Second, Mr. Jerry Levin, CEO of Time Warner Incorporated betwixt the years 1992 and 2001. These two gentlemen are, in fact, the puppet masters behind the move to be. Under the ruling of Steve Case, AOL grew into the giant it was across the mid to late 90s. And in this dot-com bubble-fueled financial world, the whispers began to grow. In the late 90s specifically. Whispers that AOL, in order to take advantage of its immense stock value, needed to use that juicy capital to make one hell of an acquisition. So the whispers got more specific. Talk around town started saying that AOL was plotting a move. What move, you say? Well, the rumor was a hostile takeover. Our good friend, Mr. Jerry Levin, began to hear whispers. Specifically, there were two frightening outcomes that poured paranoia onto Mr. Levin. The outcome of AOL moving in and putting in a bid for a hostile takeover of Time Warner, and the outcome of AOL and AT&T sneakily forming a merger and becoming the ultimate powerhouse of the technological revolution. See, you might need a little context here. Building up to this window, this very moment of time within the world of Time Warner, Jerry Levin was a powerhouse of innovation. Let me quote this one directly from a write-up talking about the man himself. Levin had been at the forefront of nearly every advance in television technology since the 1970s. Levin, in 1972, persuaded his bosses to transmit HBO cable programs by satellite instead of by videotape, which led to an explosion of the number of possible cable channels. It was also Levin who, after orchestrating the marriage of Time Incorporated and Warner Communications in 1992, looked to leverage the company's publishing and movie businesses by pushing more aggressively into the cable business. Levin later bought Turner Broadcasting System, giving his company a wide array of cable channels to feed through his pipes. So, in Jerry's eyes, the next logical, strategic, and juicy move was to use cable's speedy pipes for connecting to the internet and for receiving phone calls. This, folks, was where AOL and AT&T were thrivers. Thriving rivals with a head start on this race. So, back to the paranoia growing within Jerry. If these two rivals joined forces, Time Warner wouldn't stand a chance in this race. And with that, he didn't have any interest in being on the receiving side of a hostile takeover. So, you could say, times were tense up in the mind of Jerry Levin. Folks, I must interrupt our tale with a quick message. Today's video is brought to you by the wonderful team over at Phantom Wallet. In case you haven't got the memo, it's the day and age where your wallet defines you. Gone are the days of the bulky, ugly Costanza wallets of the world. Phantom brings sexy, sleek, and modern potential right into your pocket. I mean, look at these things. They were kind enough to send me a few of their signature wallets. And let me tell you, all 3 times I've had this out in public so far, I've had to share the link to Phantom's website. Because these things are eye-catching sexy. It's not often that a wallet's a topic of conversation. But when I bust out my Phantom, You better believe it is. The Phantom comes in the S and the R product lines, both gorgeous options, just depends on who you are as a person. With that, these buttes come in 3 sizes and a wide span of lovely finishes to choose from. If you're a money clip type of folk, they've got their signature, state-of-the-art, optional money clip to bring that cash potential alive. And with that, they've got a massive amount of incredible, optional accessories to throw into the mix. Notably, the one that I've been using the most is, of course, the AirTag holder. I finally have a use for my AirTag. Listen, friends, go hit that link at the top of the description and get yourself the wallet you deserve. All this talk about the world of money on this channel, give your own personal world of money in your pocket a little style. Use the coupon code ChrisDaniels at checkout to save 10% on your whole order. Supporting Phantom supports the channel. And of course, my emotional well-being. So, get the heck over there and treat yourself to some excellence. Thank you, Phantom. Now it's time we re-immersed ourselves in this tale. You could say times were tense up in the mind of Jerry Levin. Which brings us to a big, monumental moment in the great history of all things. The date, October 1st, 1999. The place, Tiananmen Square, China. The occasion, the 50th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. It was here that it just so happened to work itself out where Mr. Jerry Levin and Mr. Steve Case were both invited to attend. And even crazier than that, Jerry was seated directly in front of Steve, mere inches from one another. It was here that the unexpected friendship began to form. The friendship birthed and blossomed amidst their China stay. In this time, beyond the dinners and pleasantries between Steve, Jerry, and the wives, Time Warner scheduled a board meet here in China. So Steve ended up meeting all sorts of various board member folks running the company. Though it wasn't till 1 month later that the topic of big business moves would be brought up. Now back in the US of A, Stevie Case calls Mr. Levin up on the phone for a little chat. And in that chat, for the first time, he alludes to the gentle idea of their 2 companies being put together as one. Jerry played defensive at this point, going back straight to the muscle memory response of, "We ain't for sale, Buster," and what have you. So the discussion ended right there in its tracks. Until the dinner date. About a week or so after their chat on the phone, Steve and Jerry met up for a little dinner and wine action at the Riga Royal, smack dab in Midtown Manhattan. And as it turns out, this was no ordinary dinner. In fact, this evolved to become a multi-hour, hard-hitting discussion focused on philosophy, values, and overarching vision. No business details, no numbers, nothing like that, purely ideologically. All about the hypothetical combined world they could potentially build together, and the broader impact they could have upon society. And well, that lengthy discussion went nicely. And that lengthy discussion evolved into more discussions, which evolved into meetings of more people. And before we knew it, both teams, AOL and Time Warner, they assembled their negotiating staffs because, baby, it was on. The deal was officially sealed at a dinner in early January at Steve's home in Virginia. In the world's eye, this big fat deal was presented as a merger of equals. But in actuality, AOL, with its big, thick valuation, was taking over Time Warner as a majority owner in this new merged entity, owning 55% of the new company, leaving Time Warner with 45%. So, the process began. Real deal now. Everyone was alerted of the news. The team of executives were finally filled in. And as it turns out, no one was thrilled about this news. The executive team at Time Warner was not loving this big, bold, merging plan. Well, too bad, so sad, it was on, baby. And on February 11th, 2000, the deal was officially filed with a final approval date of January 11th, 2002. And so, on that day, the merge was complete, setting the scene for the real chaos to come. Folks, let me tell you a thing or two about bad timing. Bad timing can really ruin what previously appears to be beautiful potential. Sometimes, when you go on vacation, a storm ends up swinging by overhead and there's just nothing you can do about it. You planned your trip, you got your tickets, you packed your bags, you did all the things you could have done. Yet here come the clouds and there lies the storm, here to ruin the fun for you and everyone. The merger, takeover, acquisition, whatever you want to call it, it began in January of 2000. A time of technological thrill, high-speed gains, innovation, pure excitement. And it came to fruition in January of 2001. But unfortunately, a storm came by in March of 2000 to throw a real damper on this family vacation. That storm? The pop of the dot-com bubble. Between this massive market crash of the tech sector specifically and the fact that AOL started rapidly losing market share to the growth of high-speed broadcast providers, things got ugly quick. Tensions grew rapidly. Excitement for this takeover was very, very brief, if at all. Resentment, dread, spite. The offices of AOL Time Warner were apparently quite an ugly stomping ground at this point in time. The expected synergies of AOL and Time Warner divisions never came into existence. AOL president and COO Bob Pittman predicted beforehand that the slow-moving Time Warner would finally be able to take off at internet speed, accelerated by the one and only AOL. Well, sorry, Bob. Life is full of disappointment. Folks, I'd like to, with you, right now, take a little look at the numbers. AOL officially bought Time Warner for stock, initially valued at $165 billion, combining that company into a value behemoth, clocking it at a grand total of $350 billion market cap, at the peak of the excitement. This sucker was, at that point, the largest merger ever in American business history. And are you ready for the tragic, poetic outcome? A mere 2 years later, in 2002, the merged giant reported a loss of $99 billion. At that point, the largest loss ever reported by a company in American business history. Oof. But, like, kind of poetic. The value of AOL stock tumbled on down from $226 billion to about $20 billion across this span. Very, very unsexy time, this was. So yeah, as I said, there was tension in the office. There was resentment that Time Warner folks had for AOL folks. And naturally, there was an ugly war happening amidst the leadership of AOL Time Warner too. The tension built and built and built and eventually led to a public outburst by company vice chairman Ted Turner at a board meeting in 2001. This outburst pushed our friend, Mr. Steve Case, to the limit. Steve jumped into action. Tragic action, perhaps. Steve contracted each of the other directors to push for CEO Jerry Levin's removal. His former friend, Jerry. Steve's attempted coup ultimately failed. But in a sense, it didn't. The directors stopped the coup, but Jerry became more and more frustrated with not being able to control his company, to save this ship, and so he handed in his resignation in the fall of 2001. And officially, he stepped down in May of 2002. Steve Case eventually lost his position of executive chairman of the board of directors in 2002, then eventually resigned from the board entirely in 2005. AOL Time Warner dropped the AOL from its name in July 2003. After a long run of removing leadership from the whole AOL disaster, this was a symbolic cutting of the fat, bringing the company officially back to their former title of just Time Warner. A big, fat undo, indeed. A Mr. Jeff Bukes went on to become CEO of Time Warner later in 2007, and he publicly described this merger as the biggest mistake in corporate history. Between the money lost, the leadership reputations, the employee stock options, the brand image, perhaps it was the biggest mistake in corporate history. But hey, at least we got a pretty banging story out of it. And I like to stay on the positivity side of things, then and again. So it's worth remembering that prior to overseeing the disastrous acquisition that was, Jerry Levin was a legend. He played a pretty substantial part in developing modern cable. He pioneered the existence of HBO. He was the man who pushed the merger between Time and Warner. Then, with Turner Broadcast and CNN, AOL was just another play for innovation that didn't work out. But don't hate Jerry for trying to change the world of entertainment, because the man had an impressive record of doing so. And Steve Case, I mean, come on. The man saw innovation early. He was CEO of the leading internet company prior to and going into the internet boom. So no matter the outcome, his vision was undeniable. He played a part in developing the modern world of the internet we now surround ourselves with. So maybe this was the biggest mistake in corporate history, the worst of the worst, but you know what? Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. And that there is all I got for you on this one. The tale of AOL Time Warner is certainly a wild one. The early stages of a potentially world-changing hostile takeover turned into the biggest business merger in history, evolved into the worst corporate decision ever. Wow, 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 friends. This one's been a doozy. If you want more juicy tales from the world of money, check out the rest of my money lore videos on my channel. Stop by, stay a while, make yourself at home. And with that, thank you so much for watching my video. I'll see you real soon. Be safe out there.